Hello, everyone. In this session, we want to discuss connection security rules. Connection security rules will be the rules that say what type of protection you're going to apply to the traffic coming into your network and the traffic going out of your network. Now, in our previous sessions, we have discussed Windows firewall rules. We can configure Windows firewall rules to filter traffic that's going out and filter traffic that's coming in. This traffic can also be protected. And we protect this traffic using connection security rules, which is a wizard that will configure IP security for the traffic on your network. We're going to look at our group policy, and also we're going to look to see how we can configure this security locally. We will start by accessing the IPsec policy in Windows Firewall with Advanced Security from the Tools menu of our Server Manager. We're going to click on Tools, Group Policy Management. We want to expand Contoso, and we want to right-click on Firewall Policy and edit that firewall policy. Computer Configuration, Policies, Windows Settings, Security Settings, Windows Firewall with Advanced Security. In the left pane, we want to expand Windows Firewall with Advanced Security. Then we're going to expand Windows Firewall with Advanced Security again, where we have the icon, the Windows Firewall icon here at the left. So we're going to expand that. And we want to come down to Connection Security Rules. Now, let's look at what we have here. We have inbound rules, outbound rules, and connection security rules. Remember that the action, filtering action that we do it on the inbound and the outbound rules. The connection security rules will not filter your data. The connection security rules, they are used for protecting that data, for configuring methods for authentication of your traffic. So we're going to right-click on Connection Security Rules, and then we're going to click on New Rule. There are different types of connection security rules, and you can choose the type of rule that you want to create. Let us take a look at the different types of rules. Let us start by looking at the isolation rule. If you configure an isolation rule, that isolation rule will restrict connections based on your authentication criteria that you define. For example, you can use this rule type to isolate computers in your domain from computers outside your domain, such as computers on the internet or another domain. Then you have the second type here, authentication exemption. And if you choose this type, This rule is going to exempt specific computers or a group or range of IP addresses, which are computers, from being required to authenticate themselves, regardless of other connection security rules. This rule type is commonly used to grant access to infrastructure computers that this computer must communicate with before authentication. By infrastructure computers, we mean Active Directory domain controllers, DNS servers, DHCP servers. This type of rule is also used for other computers that cannot use the form of authentication you configured for this policy and profile. Then let us look at server to server. You use this rule type to authenticate the communication between two specific computers, between two groups of computers, between two subnets, or between a specific computer and a group of computers or a subnet. You might also use this rule to authenticate the traffic between a database server and a business layer computer, or between an infrastructure computer and another server. And then we have tunnel. We want to use this rule type to secure communications traveling between peer computers through endpoints. And by endpoints, we mean tunnel endpoints, such as virtual private networking or IPsec layer 2 tunneling protocol. And then we have the custom rule. And we use this rule type to create a rule that requires special settings. We're going to choose server to server for our example. Then we're going to click on next. And here you get to create a secured connection between computers in endpoint 1 and endpoint 2. So we're doing server to server. So you can choose the IP addresses, or you can say any IP address for endpoint 1, and you can do the same for endpoint 2. We're going to accept any IP address, and we're going to click next to continue. When do you want authentication to occur? You have request authentication for inbound and outbound connections. So we're saying that when the traffic is going out or coming in, any communication that goes out or come in, that communication has to authenticate. What does authentication mean? Remember that when you are signing in to your domain using your username and password, you're authenticating. It means that you are saying who you are. And the system then will check to see if your records are in the database. So that's one method. Another method can be that you're authenticating using certificates. You could authenticate using smart card, just as you would use your bank card on the teller machine. You have different types of authentication. Sometimes you swipe your card. Sometimes they might ask you to put in your username or ID, depending on the type of authentication. So the point here is that before you connect, you have to say who you are using some sort of authentication method. Microsoft's default authentication method is a protocol called Kerberos version 5. And when you authenticate using your username and password, you're actually using Kerberos. But You could opt to authenticate by swiping a card, using certificates, or any other type of authentication that is required. So if we look at the different methods here, we're saying that when the traffic is coming in or going out, we could request authentication wherever possible, but it is not required. So it means that if the machine that you're using does not allow you to configure authentication, then the traffic will still go through. That means authentication is not required. Then you have the second option here, where you can require authentication for traffic, for inbound traffic, and request authentication for outbound. So you require that any traffic coming in has to authenticate. But now the outbound connections, you can request authentication. But if authentication is not possible, the traffic will still go through. The third option, which is the one we're going to choose for example, require authentication for inbound and outbound connections. If the computer systems cannot authenticate, then that traffic is going to be dropped. It is not going to be allowed if you configure this third one for your authentication type. So we're going to click here for the third option. Then we're going to click on next. And here we get to choose the type of authentication method we would like to use. You can use computer certificates, and you would have to have a computer certificate to use this one. Or we can come here and click on advanced, which leads us to customize, which means that you could choose your own authentication method. We're going to choose computer certificate, so we're going to click on browse. And we do have a computer certificate here within Contoso, so we're going to choose that one. And we're going to say OK. We're going to click on next to continue. And at this point, we get to specify when the rule applies. Does the rule apply when a computer is connected to the corporate network, which would be your network? Does the rule apply when the computer is connected to a private network, such as a home or workplace? Or does the rule apply when the computer is connected to a public network location, such as the internet? Remember that we can choose all three. All three of these can work simultaneously. So we're going to leave the default at all three, and we're going to click next to continue. Here, we need to type a name for the security rule. And we're going to call the rule communication rule. So we're going to spell out communication rule and press enter. So the name of the rule is communication rule. And we're going to click on finish. At this point, we want to close the Group Policy Management window. And we want to right click on this rule. Maybe we might want to change the properties of the rule. So we're going to right click on communication rule, and we're going to click on properties. We want to click on the authentication tab. And remember, we can go back here to make changes. And we can see the different types of authentication. And remember, if you want to customize your authentication, you can click on advanced and then click on customize. You can use Kerberos, And you can choose, you can also change the authentication mode here under requirements. So you can come back to the rule. You could right click on the rule to get the properties and make changes to that rule. Let's click on OK to close that box. Then we want to close the Group Policy Management Editor. And we can see that we have the communication rules there. So I want you to bear in mind that these connection security rules actually protect the traffic as it goes out of your network and protects the traffic that is coming into your network. It doesn't configure the rules for filtering the traffic. Remember, filtering will allow you to say what type of traffic goes out and what type of traffic goes in, the range of traffic, the IP addresses, and so forth. This is the end of our session, and I want to thank you for listening.